everybody? This is Thaddaus Dawson. Welcome to the 10K MA podcast, 10K Black Appraisers podcast. Like, subscribe, share. Today, we have a very exciting guest who I can proudly say I've known, I won't say all of his life, but damn near all of his life. And just to see him today, I am sitting here glowing and beaming with pride with the man that he has become. I remember him as a little kid, and just to see him doing the things he's doing now in the commercial real estate space is really special to me. This young man, his name is Kofi Meroe, and he's with Foulger Pratt, a commercial developer in Washington, D.C. And what Kofi is currently working on is converting office buildings into housing. And so today we're going to talk about that conversion, the cost of conversion, the value, and does he think it's the answer for affordable housing? So, Kofi, I'm gonna go ahead and just jump in there. I'm so proud of you. And one of the things I would like to start with, if you could just give us an introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself and your company. I know that you graduated from UMass and you moved to Ghana when you were 12 with your family. And prior to that, you'd moved to, I believe, Nigeria when you were 4. I know you were born in Cincinnati. And so that's where our connection goes all the way back to birth. And your mom worked at Procter and Gamble, and your dad worked with me at the city of Cincinnati. So that has been whew, a long time ago. And just to see you grown up and try to catch up with you whenever I'm in DC. I know your schedule is busy. And the last time before last, we got a chance to sit down and get together. So again, I'm extremely proud of you and the man that you are and the work that you're doing. And so go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. Thank you to the 10K Minority Appraisers, 10K Black Appraisers. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll say everything you said is true. We go way back, and it's a pleasure to be able to be here to support you. And it was good to see you in DC and see you shine. I think. For me, how I kind of describe my upbringing is, obviously my parents are from here, but I was raised most of my life in West Africa, and so I do have a unique perspective, that I bring to how I kind of have moved through life. But I currently reside in Washington, D.C., as you stated. I live here with my wife, and I have a son. And I've been in DC for about 14 years, and all of those 14 years, I've worked in commercial real estate development. I did go to the University of Massachusetts Amherst. My background or my education was actually in hospitality management. So I spent my college years, and my first job out of college was all kind of in hospitality, mostly working in hotels, and
Does your hospitality management degree have anything to do with your family developing a luxury resort in Ghana?
Uh, maybe a little bit because I don't know that the beach house was kind of where it was at the time that I was looking to figure out what I wanted to do. But what I was aware of at the time is that I had traveled a lot, as we were just talking about during my upbringing, and I had had a chance to be the consumer of other people's hospitality, whether that was, on a personal level, family, friends, going all over the place and staying with people, or, at the more commercial level. And I've always been the type of person where, I like to do things that provide experiences and see other people have a good time. And I think I definitely get that from, my upbringing. And so, yeah, I think when I was looking for what it was that I wanted to do, there was an opportunity to apply to the hospitality school, and so I did that. But it didn't last long. I took my first year out of college. I think I was in my first role for about 9 months in New Jersey before I actually moved down to DC, and took my first job in real estate, which actually was at Howard University. I worked there for about a year just as a contractor, but working in the real estate department, and got really an opportunity to see, I'd say for a year. So you really get a snapshot of the industry, but I got to see a lot of different facets to the industry, which really excited me. And it was in that year that I was like, this is actually what I want to do with my life.
Now,
And
one thing that
so,
I do want you to share, and I want to be able to share this with our students, and tell me if I'm remembering correctly. You were out of school and you couldn't find what you really wanted, and uh, you were struggling, and your dad suggested that you volunteer with the company doing the work that you wanted to do because you weren't getting any takers passing out your resume, and you went in, volunteered, knocked it out, and a year later they hired you, and now you are the director of the company.
not exactly, not
Well, go
exactly.
ahead, fill in the gaps. I
I
mean, I
guess,
know
I
I probably
guess,
missed a little
yeah,
bit in
I
there,
guess parts of that are true.
but
Kind of not.
I want to emphasize the fact that you knew what you wanted and you volunteered in order to prove your worth. When a lot of our students, we got I got everybody paid internships last year, and I'm trying to get some paid internships this year. Things are a lot different this year than they were last year. And last year we had a lot of interns with the government. I don't know that that's going to happen, but
Yeah.
like the experience that you gain volunteering, do you think you benefited from that and got a return on your investment?
Yeah, absolutely. But so I didn't even know you knew that story. So what you're hinting at is it was actually after my 1 year at Howard. So
Okay.
as I was actually just saying, that year is what really got me, got my eyes open to, all the different opportunities there were within real estate. And, the role I was in, although it was very, 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 low man on the totem pole support for development roles, I really liked what I was being immersed into. And in fact, I actually got some pretty good hands-on experience in that first year. So that transition, though, once the contract was up, I realized that this is what I wanted to do. I wasn't able to pursue another contract at Howard. So I started looking for real estate development roles for, applying to all types of different companies. Think I was out of a formal role for about 8 months. And at a certain point, and this is where your network is really important, especially people that other people introduce you to. Someone that I had met via my previous boss at Howard and in a meeting, who was a developer. I had gotten him to connect me with him, or he knew I was still looking for a role, so he connected me with him. And my first meeting with him, he actually had me meet him at like 8 a.m. at some, breakfast place in DC, and random Thursday or something like that. But I was there, and we had a good conversation. And with that advice in the back of my mind, I basically told him that, listen, I spent a lot of time filling out applications, knowing people aren't going to call me back. I'm looking for an entry level job, but everyone's telling me I don't have experience. It doesn't equate. I'm
Can you
kind of,
say that again? Entry level, because everybody wants to start off being the CEO or the director now. I
oh,
got
I mean,
students that want to come
no,
in
I
and run the
mean,
company.
no, 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 no. I mean, at that time, I mean, I didn't know anything then. I always say I still don't know anything now. I mean, I know a lot now, but I still have a lot to learn. And so, I mean, I was making $14 an hour at the hotel, right? So coming to real estate and not that much more at Howard. And so I was really kind of starting at the bottom and willing to work my way up. And so the frustrating thing was trying to find an entry level position was hard. And being able to um, get one of those roles without experience, which how do you have experience if you're qualified for an entry level position, right? But
It's a
eh,
catch 22.
yeah, so basically, I'm at this breakfast and I'm ranting about that and how I'm probably wasting my time for most of these applications anyway. Why don't you let me spend some of my time in your office? Let me shadow you, let me see how you do your job. If you need anything done in the office, I'm willing to do it. And he didn't say yes immediately. He probably called my mentor, who he knew, and called me back the next day and said that, he tried me out for 30 days in the office. And yeah, basically I worked part-time, just kind of like admin support for the first 30 days. He brought me on part-time after the first 30 days, and I think 2 weeks to a month after that, he gave me a full-time position. And I was the most junior of associates, but at times it was a very small company, and at times it was just me and the owner of the company. But that company now has since grown; it's doing really well. But I ended up leaving that company, so I was doing affordable housing development exclusively for about 5 to 6 years in DC, working for a company called Dante's Partners. And I then transitioned over to Folger Pratt about 8 years ago. Now I think I'm going on my 8 year anniversary at Folger Pratt, to do some market rate development. And so, more Class A apartments. I wanted to get some office experience. I wanted to get some retail experience. And I wanted to operate in some different markets as well. And so, yeah, that's where I've been for about 8 years. And I've, worked my way up from junior associate, and now at Folger Pratt, I'm one of the directors of development. And yeah, it's been a good ride. It's been hard work, but it's been extremely enriching. And it's still, after 14 years, something that I'm really passionate about, and excited to wake up and do on a daily basis.
I missed a little bit of the connectivity there, but the impressive part is you found out what you wanted, and it's kind of similar in the appraising space. Um, I remember when I wanted to, nobody would hire me, so I started off going to all these different meetings offering to work for these big appraisers for free. And this was before the internet. So a couple of them took me up on it, and I was doing random courthouse searches, uh, Hamilton County Courthouse, Butler County Courthouse, Claremont County Courthouse, researching the property records and deeds, and then measuring and taking pictures of houses. I think I probably did that. If it was up to them, I'd probably still be doing it for free. But I was able to take and parlay that from one thing to another. So just the point that you knew what you wanted and pursued it with such gusto is impressive. And
Yeah,
then
and
to
and
see
and,
where
and
you
it
are
wasn't
now.
it wasn't easy. Kind of, as I say, I'm extremely blessed, but in that 8 months of not having work, I had an apartment with a roommate. I had bills that needed to be paid. I had a couple family friends that looked out, a couple months here or there, but for the most part, I was doing like banquet serving work, which is stuff I was doing in college. And so being out of college 2 years and having to go back and do that, do banquet work, it was extremely humbling. And that 8 months, I think, really also gave me the burning motivation to take advantage of opportunities when I got them, because not to say that there's anything wrong with banquet work, because there was a lot of dudes cleaning up there, doing banquet work and having 3, 4 months off with the money they were making during high season. But it's not what I wanted to do with my time, and I knew I didn't necessarily want to have to go back to do something, and I didn't want to do. Now, life is life. Like, I'm not going to say I'll never be back there, but I know what that feeling is like, and so I try to make decisions so that I don't end up in a position doing something I don't want to do.
Well, like life's on you. I
Yeah, it
I
does.
found
Yeah,
myself doing some banquet work late in life after I
yeah,
had a successful career and a failed housing development, the market crash, and moving to Atlanta in 2007, probably the worst possible time ever,
yeah.
and then taking a transition for license. So I did a little banquet serving. I worked at a hotel. I worked at Home Depot at 40 years old, and was extremely humbled by that
Hmm.
transition of trying to establish myself here in Atlanta. And even though it was humbling, um, after owning several properties and suffering through the crash, I learned that it built character, and I made a lot of good friends while I was
Yeah,
while I
yeah.
was there. Matter of fact, I was working at a hotel downtown, and I met Millard Fuller, and I still got a book that he signed to this day. And I couldn't believe that he remembered me and mailed me the book, and he was to me like a giant. He had started Habitat for Humanity, and I think that was right before they pushed him out. Um,
Yeah.
and that's just like
Yeah,
you were
I
home
do.
for those 8 months. It was short.
No, yeah, it was short. But I do remember, two takeaways. One of the takeaways was, because I was working as many hours as I could. So you come back after those long days, and I realized like, I'm soft. Yeah, I'm more of an office guy. Like I'm not suited for a lot of this hard work. But the other takeaway is why I kind of like while you're there, it's kind of like being at the gym, right? Like you don't want to go, but you're there. Once you're there, you kind of enjoy it. But I was
Exercise that
surrounded.
muscle.
Yeah, but you have those banquet lifers, but a lot of the people there were people where they were kind of doing it to the next thing. And so there were a lot of people there who were talking about what they were going to do. And I love that energy. And so I had a lot of good conversations with people, whether it be, younger folks saying, trying to, pay their way to get to school or career transition, whatever it may be. I love that energy. And so that is
DC,
something that I
like
always
Atlanta, is an
remember. Yeah,
international
exactly.
melting pot,
Yeah,
and it's
exactly. Yeah.
extremely competitive. And you have a lot of folks with high level degrees doing banquet work.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
were people here doing banquet work, working at the hotel with master's degrees at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure the story is the same in DC. And look like with the way this market is going with this new administration, shit, things might be a little bit turbulent here real soon.
Hold on to your little dollars.
So what do you see? Talk a little bit about your current housing project where you're converting office into housing in DC, and talk about. I know you're close to wrapping up the project, and we talked about you doing a market analysis now based on the projections and when you started and how those are lining up. Can you just walk us through that?
Yeah, so we have, well, Foulger Pratt, the company I work for, we acquired an office building. I believe it was in somewhere between 2019 or 2020, and I wasn't on it initially during the acquisition part of this project. I was working on some other stuff. But we acquired this office building with the intent to convert it to apartments. Um, One of the reasons well, we started seeing that there were going to be some opportunities because we were also office developers and office owners, and we saw the market slowing down and starting to dry up years ago. And so we thought that there would be some opportunities out there, back then in 2020, to find some distressed office opportunities and maybe convert them to apartments. Apartments and multifamily housing is our bread and butter. That is the core of what we do, as a development company. And so um, this office building was one of about 30 different properties and transactions that we underwrote and looked at with the possibility of an office to residential conversion, and this is the one that we picked. And what I've actually found, through conversation over the last couple of years, is that is actually in many large cities is very close to the percentage of the number of buildings that will actually work. Like 1 in 30 that will actually work for a conversion. So it's not as many as people may think that every office building can be converted to apartments. There's some very unique characteristics that developers are going to be looking for, that lend office buildings to that sort of conversion. And so for this building particularly,
Can you talk about some of those characteristics? Because some of the things that I've seen is everybody thinks it's a good idea, but the cost of conversion for plumbing and plumbing more so than anything for kitchens and bathrooms, the office layout just doesn't lend itself to that.
yeah, it's a laundry list of things. I guess I'll first start by talking about, at least what I know and what I've seen as far as the types of office buildings that lend themselves to conversion. So, um, the construction of the office building changed, drastically, between World War I and World War II, and office buildings and around the development of central air, around the development of the incandescent light bulb and being able to light large amounts of spaces. Um, Office buildings used to be kind of very narrow and rectangular. They used to have punch windows so you could get airflow coming through the building and they used to be built almost kind of in blocks because you had to be able to get light into them. You know, Post World War II, you start to see office buildings be a lot larger. There are these like large rectangular blocks. You have these massive floor plates with singular cores, windows only on the outside, but you're able to heat, cool, ventilate them and light them, with, modern lighting and modern ventilation. Those office buildings are not well suited to be converted to, most of them are not well suited to be converted to apartments. Um, I will say the building that we're converting was built in the 1980s, and so again, it's not all of the buildings, but most of the common office buildings that people would think of as modern office buildings.
Why apartments as opposed to condos or co-op?
My company specifically, we don't do anything for sale. So we don't do condos, we don't do single family, housing or anything like that. If you do see us in multifamily product, it's going to be rental. If you do see us, we do have some new kind of townhome products, but they're all for rental. We just don't operate in that space. They could be, right? So we could have converted this building to condos, but we just don't do for sale.
And so it's taken 5 years to get this project online. What kind of absorption cost is that? And was that what you had projected and predicted when you started the project?
Yeah, I think the timeline honestly has been, I'd say there was a little bit of the delay in getting the financing settled because, we were trying to finance this building in 2023, right after COVID. Construction costs had increased, substantially. Interest rates were moving. That's the year that interest rates started moving up significantly. And so it was a really hard year to get something financed, but that's we caught a little bit of a delay there, but ultimately the project has actually proceeded as planned.
How
um
big is the building, Kofi?
the building is about 270,000 net square feet, and its gross is probably about 300 square feet or 300,000 square feet. It's a big building. It's
How many
243
stories?
13 stories plus a penthouse.
Average size per unit?
The average size per unit is about 880 square feet. That is skewed a little bit because we have some very large penthouse units on the top two floors. The penthouse units range from an average of about 1,200 square feet to about 1,900 square feet at the largest.
And what was that, one or two bedrooms that you?
The penthouse ones, the large ones, those are three bedrooms.
Okay.
The
And
larger,
the
the
800
largest
square
ones are three
feet?
bedrooms, or 2 and 3 bedrooms. The 800, so the unit mix ranges from everything from studio apartments all the way to 3 bedrooms. So the smallest apartments we have are going to be your studio apartments that are going to be in your 600, 600 to 700 square feet, mid
And what are
600
those
to mid
renting
700
for?
square feet range. The average rental price per square foot for this building is $4 and about 24 $4.20. So the rent is quite high. So for 1,000 square foot apartment, that's $4,200 that you're paying on a monthly basis.
Damn. Do you get maid service with that?
You don't get maid service with that, but we do have well, actually, I don't want to say it's not included in that rent, but I won't say that the option won't be provided as an amenity in the building. And so, I'll talk to you, one of the things I was going to say, as you're looking at the considerations vary. It really depends on lots of different things. I can talk to you why we picked this building. Um, First and foremost, as everyone always says with real estate, location, 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 right? You always want to consider your location. Is the location of your building, is it going to give you the premium enough that you're going to need to convert this building? Because I'm yet to see a conversion that's cheaper than building a new building. It's either going to be about the same cost or it's going to cost you more, depending on the complexity of what you need to do to convert that building.
Do you
Um,
think your entry cost today would be cheaper than in 2019 when you all acquired this building?
Oh, absolutely. The market, the market has changed, but I don't know that we would be hitting the market at as good of a time either, because a lot of development has slowed down. A lot of projects didn't get financed in 2023 and in 2024. We are and we're only the second conversion happening downtown that's about to deliver. The next two coming after us are at the end of this year and next year. So we are giving ourselves we are delivering in a nice pocket in a market that's just getting tapped because historically downtown DC does not have a lot of residential development. And so, when I talk about location, one of the beautiful things about this office building is literally steps from the White House complex. It is going to be the closest apartment building to the White House. It is right in downtown DC. Um, it is also steps from the IMF, it steps from the Treasury, it steps from the Milken Institute. It's sitting right there in downtown DC, right next to the White House. It is a building that we call a through block building. So it has window frontage on the front and it has window frontage on the back also. So it goes all the way through from New York Avenue back to the 8th Street on the back.
What kind of occupancy are you anticipating?
We typically underwrite, at least in a pro forma, we'll underwrite about 7%, 7%, what am I trying to say? 93%
Vacancy.
vacancy, yes, 7% vacancy. What we're seeing in the market downtown, again, because you have a big gap. You have old legacy apartments that are downtown, and you don't have a lot of new product. And so we're going to be the second of a lot of, not a lot, but some new product that's just coming into the market. And so the product that we're seeing, the legacy product, their occupancy is well over 95% and they're doing really well. And so we were nervous to try to see what the new product would do. The office conversion that delivered late last year is blowing it out of the water, and they're actually exceeding their rents that they had targeted for. So that's good for us because they help kind of sustain at least some of the assumptions that we were making in our business plan. But again, we're keen on the location, and besides the through block element of the building was also a building that had an atrium in the middle of the building that ran from the first floor all the way up through the building, and that allowed us to create a courtyard. So now we have light on one, two, and three sides, which allows us to program units and double load the corridor and gives you the most efficient kind of ability to lay out an apartment building. The stairs for this building were in locations where you'd want them in an apartment building for the most part. The elevator cores were pretty much where you'd want them for a building of this size. And there were a couple other, characteristics of this building that just made it a good fit for us. And it's still a very expensive project. Again, we're not these rents are not necessarily set because we're going to make a boatload of money. These rents are set to justify the cost of the project. It is a very expensive cost of project to
So,
convert.
so
But
these types of conversions are definitely not in the realm of affordable housing. Do you think in other areas not as saturated as DC that it's an option? And do you think, well, even with the increased level of inventory, from what you're saying, you can only use 1 in 30 of the buildings to
on
meet
average, yeah.
apartment or building criteria. Is that just with you all's criteria or market wide?
I'm starting to think I don't know if it'll be as extreme market wide because again every city's different and you probably have more older office buildings in older cities, but it's for most of the country, I think you're going to find similar statistics, and if not it won't be too far off, because again there's a lot of new office buildings. One thing we don't do that well in this country that countries in Europe, for example, do a pretty good job of doing is preserve our older buildings. We tend to knock down and rebuild. And so, a lot of the new large office buildings that we've been building, since the 40s, a lot of them are in a lot of our markets. So, can it be an affordable option? Sure, right? In a different market, obviously you're not going to buy an office building steps from the White House. right? But, is there an office building that kind of meets the specifications that you're looking for, and whatever you're budgeting to convert that can justify the rent that you can get in that area? Because that's all it is really at the end of the day, right? You're looking at what is it going to cost me to get it? What is it going to cost me to convert it to what I want it to be? And the rents that I can justify in this market, are they going to be able to sustain me being able to get financing to do this project? That's pretty much it. And if those things don't work out, usually say don't do the project.
So is
Um,
it a project, the type of conversion, is that something that works DMV wide or just in DC? Will that work in Maryland? Will it work in Virginia?
Work anywhere that there's an office building that meets your
Okay.
that I think we're having these conversations for obvious reasons recently, but office conversions are not a novel thing. Like, we've been converting office buildings for a long time, and it's not just to residential, it's to other types of uses. So I don't think it's a novel thing per se, but I understand that a lot of people are looking to it because the market has been stalled for the last couple of years. I mean, a lot of people don't like to say it, but commercial real estate has been in recession for at least the last 2 years. And so, everyone is, us included, we're all looking for opportunities to see, how are we all going to kind of come out of this? Because I think we are starting to see some positive signs, but how are we going to come out of this to um, find the opportunities that exist in these new market conditions? Because the reality of the situation, a lot of the deals that we were cutting even just 2, 3, 4 years ago, interest rates are completely different, the costs are completely different. The financial markets are in completely different places, and so we have to kind of look at the reality of where we are, and try to be creative to find what the new opportunities are.
Do you think some of the buildings that are less convertible maybe can do like a change of lifestyle, like a hostel or a hotel or Airbnb type of situation? Is there that kind of demand for rooms or some sort of communal type living?
Yeah, I think, different markets have different demands. I think absolutely. I was speaking recently on a panel actually about this very topic, and one of the things I was saying is I think you can kind of lament the fact that, okay, there's a smaller percentage of buildings than we thought that are actually, more suitable for conversion. But with some more design creativity and more flexibility from a lot of the jurisdictions around the country, like the people who make decisions on what you
Oh, so
can
you're
and
saying the
can't do in the
zoning, need
building.
more flexibility
it,
in
it
the
can it
zoning.
can be zoning, it can be environmental, but like with a more developer and design side creativity, and more creativity and flexibility from jurisdictions on what they're allowing and how conversions can take place. I think you could unlock more buildings, but with the current environments that you see mostly around the country, it's gonna be limited. I mean, because if you really think about it, I'm in a market like DC, who prides itself, kind of like a California, right, on having the tip top brand new regulations that are pushing the boundary on the environmental protection and all sorts of things. And I'm not saying it's not important, but all those things add cost to building housing. And so
Mm.
it's not a secret to why housing is more expensive in certain places. Beyond the fact that real estate may be expensive, but it comes down to the cost of construction. And if it's already expensive, as we've seen it run up over all these years, um, when you talk about the extra costs in having to upgrade equipment, and even in old buildings. I mean, DC has got a new regulation where they're making sure buildings keep up with energy standards, but it'll be interesting to see what happens over the years. Because I mean, buildings aren't sitting on wads of cash. So how do you make a building do $100,000 upgrade in 10 years? Because you might find
Will
them.
the tariffs impact your finalizing and closing out your project?
I hope not. I've ordered most of what I need at this point. There are some straggler items, and I have been on many conversations this week and last week about tariff risks, and hearing Trump back down on a couple of those yesterday, maybe came up in a conversation today, which is helpful because I need to get some stuff in from Canada and from Mexico. Yeah, it's uncertain. We're just trying to plow through as fast as we can. But we're not at the beginning of the project, so there aren't like large risks to major changes in material costs and having to monitor things day by day, week by week, which I did have to do during COVID for another project I was working on that started construction months, probably 4 or 5 months before COVID happened. And now you're in the very beginning of a project, just ordering all your stuff, and material costs are skyrocketing.
How many of these offices to housing have you done now?
This is our first. This is the first for the company. So this is the first one that we're doing. I'm pursuing some other opportunities, but yeah, no, this is new to us. This is new.
So is it something you think you all are going to stay with, or the jury's still out?
The We'll stay with it if we can find another opportunity that makes sense. I'm actively looking for opportunities. I
What part of the
have
country leads in these types of conversions?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I do know in our region, there have been some conversions in Alexandria, so like Northern Virginia. They're
Mhm.
looking at some stuff in Arlington because there's lots of office product there. And DC at the moment, it's got two with another like two or three on the way. There's also been an office to hotel conversion in DC. So yeah, they're starting to happen. They're definitely prevalent. How many, due to the number of these buildings that are available and actually good to convert, how long will it last? I don't know. But Yeah, I'm not sure kind of who the industry-wide leader is in office conversions.
That's really interesting. And when you say you have your financing stack, is it tax credits or tax abatements? Any type of jurisdictional incentives needed to offset the cost to be able to complete the development?
Yeah, so this project, no, surprisingly. When we were starting, where we were trying to get this project financed and started, the city was actually just starting to have conversations or trying to finalize their conversations around the types of incentives that needed to be put in place to try to spur some more development and conversion downtown. So we were kind of in this gray area where they were trying to finalize, things were coming soon, but we also were trying to lock in our numbers and get our financing set so that we could, get the project started. And so we made a decision not to pursue any of the incentives that we thought may be coming, just try to get it privately financed, which, miraculously we did. And get the project started. But there are now a host of incentives and programs, and like you said, tax abatements and pilot programs, and there's preference in I think permitting that they're trying to get now for there's this new office to anything program, which is more focused on not just residential conversions, but just finding an office building to convert it to anything, so that there's an active use that's happening there. I know that there's a lot of concern with a lot of the GSA lease cancellations that have been happening recently. There've been a lot of leases canceled. There's a new downtown plan that's come out where they're kind of looking at certain large pockets of federal buildings that could be put up for redevelopment, and how to kind of spur redevelopment downtown. Although the activity downtown has picked up quite a bit over the last couple of weeks because people have been coming back to work and back into the office. But yeah, there's still a lot of uncertainty to the amount of product that's going to be out there based on what may happen in, the next, I could say 6 to maybe 2 to 3 years in the current administration. But I think there's more stuff out there. I mean, I think most of where you're seeing this stuff is in the large cities, and other cities have
Mhm.
have office buildings. I'm looking in some secondary markets right now, a little further south from DC. And so yeah, I think there's opportunities out there.
How long before you complete and how long before you reach lease up?
This project is going to be as we say, our first turns, our initial opening is going to be the first kind of 5 floors of the project, and then we kind of deliver, chunks of floors every month at a time. And so the initial turns for this building are going to be in the beginning of July. And then the building will be fully complete and kind of turned over to our property manager I think by the middle of September is our final completion date, our substantial
Oh, so you
completion.
won't even manage it. You will have an outside management company once you
Yeah,
finish.
so we used to actually, Foulger Pratt used to be a fully integrated real estate development company. We had our own property management, doing residential and commercial management. We actually still have our commercial management company, and we had our own construction company also. So we used to kind of acquire, develop, build, manage, and we're kind of a long-term, we take a long-term holding approach um, to our assets. So we don't do a lot of merchant building where we kind of build something and flip it and try to sell it to someone as soon as we build it. And
So
most of what we
what's a
build, we
long
hold.
what's a long term holding?
I mean, we have buildings in our portfolio that we've owned for over 20 years. We have, but it's not to say that we've sold a handful of buildings since we've sold a few buildings, I'd say, since I've been at Fulger Pratt in 8 years that were new buildings that we built. Um, something we're doing more of now, and we actually have a team that's focused on it, is actually acquiring already existing apartment buildings because it's so expensive to build right now, which isn't great for my job, but because it's so expensive to build right now, you can buy buildings that are, built within the last 5 to 7 years at, you know, maybe two-thirds of the cost
Really?
of building a brand new building.
Those
Absolutely.
office buildings or apartment buildings?
These are apartment buildings. We're not buying. Yeah, these are apartment buildings. So already just operating, nothing wrong with them, maybe you put a little bit of money into it here or there, but yeah, we bought an apartment building in DC recently at a substantial discount to what it would have cost us to build that building today.
That's amazing. So, um, anything else we need to cover there? I'm really excited and can't wait to look at your project when I get back to
Yeah, when
DC.
you're here, let me know. This is going to be one of the trophies in our assets. It's one of the nicer apartment buildings we've ever, developed. I'm really excited about it. I think it'll look great. Next time you're in DC, I'll give you a tour. But yeah, I think our pre-marketing is going to start. We'll have a website up next month. And we'll start taking applications in May. And yeah, hopefully, move in, start end of June,
What's
mid
that
July.
address for our viewers that want to get the
It's
hookup? I know somebody to get you a good rate.
So the building is called the Accolade. It's 1425 New York Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20005. So that's in downtown Washington, D.C. Again, I think the website is going to be liveaccoladeDC.com, but again, 1425 New York Avenue Northwest. And yeah, like I said, when next time you're in town, let me know. I'll give you a tour.
Well, thanks a lot for your time. I know you are very busy on this Friday afternoon. Again, I am extremely proud of you. For our viewers, like, subscribe, share.